They had finally made it to the guild, but now they had a problem. The Digidestined could choose between 3 buildings to use as their house while they were there. The first was the largest place, though it was falling apart. The second was smaller, but it had a pool and needed less work done. The final one was the smallest of the 3, but it appeared to be in fairly good shape. They were currently talking it over, and Kat seemed to like the one with the pool. Lucas seemed to like the first one, due to it being the largest and could fetch a halfway decent price due to size. The two turned to Nicole, asking what he thought, and he'd answered honestly that even though the other 2 were bigger, due to the damage, they wouldn't get much for either of them, and if they lived there, they would have to pay a lot. Judging by outside damages, it's safe to assume that both were falling apart, which meant they would have to be completely replaced in those areas. Lucas asked what they were thinking there, and Nicole told them that they were looking at costs for both demolition and renovation, not to mention any extensions that they would end up wanting to make. Though the smallest one was in fairly decent shape, and because of that, they would only cost renovations or extensions, and that would give them more money for stuff to go into the building, such as beds, dressers, tables, chairs, so on and so forth, plus more money to get clothes as needed. After thinking it over, the other 2 seemed to agree with him on that one, and after deciding, they walked back over to the counter, telling Swanmon which one they wanted. Nodding, she then asked the violet-colored Electmon if he would get that taken care of and to show them where to go. Nodding, the little purple Digimon did just that, and asked the Digidestined to follow them. They followed, and Electmon showed them to what would be their house while they were in the digital world, and introduced them to the caretaker, who wore a white and black Japanese priestess robe with a purple-colored fox-like mask over the top half of her face. She'd been introduced as Kuzuhamon, and Nicole blinked a couple of times, not expecting someone so beautiful, and caught slightly off guard. After shaking his head to clear his thoughts, he then introduced himself as Nicole, and also introduced Lucas and Kat, saying that they were the new owners of the place. Nodding, Kuzuhamon said that she hoped they would get along well, bowing slightly and flustering Nicole slightly from the view, with a very faint dusting of a blush on his face. Nicole then suggested that they have a look around, and the caretaker said that she would show them around their new home, showing them 2 empty bedrooms and one that she had been staying in herself, which had a somewhat broken down bed and dresser and really not much of anything else. Asking about that, she told him that most of the money she made for taking care of the grounds went into caring for the grounds. Nicole then asked if there was anywhere else they needed to know about, and she showed him to the basement, living room, bathroom area, and kitchen, though the rest was just the yard, which didn't really need to be explained. Kat told Nicole that there was a problem. There's 4 people and only 3 bedrooms. Kuzuhamon was about to speak, but Nicole spoke before she could, saying that Kat and Lucas would take the 2 spare rooms, fight over which one you want. Meanwhile, he himself would use the basement for now as a temporary bedroom until they could afford an extension on the home. First though, supplies, then furniture. They can go clothes shopping later. This surprised the caretaker that he didn't suggest Kuzuhamon move out of her room or anything. They were a lot nicer than the previous people that lived there. They'd rested for a bit since they were woken up too early by the Kodokugamon gang, then went off to town to get what they needed, Nicole asking Kuzuhamon if she could please get together a list of what they needed. Not much to say about the shopping, though when they got back, they began to update the furniture. Nicole telling Kuzuhamon that he got an extra bedroom set for her if she wanted it, to which she'd gratefully accepted, and they'd set it up with him asking how she liked it. Smiling, she said that it was great. She hoped it wasn't too expensive. Laughing, Nicole then told her he didn't know what to get, so he just bought her the same set he got, but in purple. She hugged him, thanking Nicole for his kindness, making him blush slightly as he told her that she was welcome while rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly, half hugging her back, then headed off back to what he needed to do, bumping into the hallway corner from not paying attention. Shaking his head, he then went down to his room to rest for a while. The next day after breakfast, Kat asked what the plan was, and Nicole said that someone should remain behind to contact the other 2 if anything happened on the home front. he and Lucas would go to do a job. If they did enough guild jobs, eventually they'll cut in on the territories of both sides and their leaders will come to them. Nodding, Lucas said that sounds like a plan. The boys headed on off, and Kat asked Kuzuhamon what was on the day's agenda. Maybe she could help. It would beat sitting around doing nothing. Nodding, the caretaker Digimon said that does sound like fun. It's actually her first time ever meeting humans. Maybe she could explain more about their culture. While they were doing that, Nicole and Lucas went to the guild, checking what jobs they could do with their current guild ranking. Finding a few jobs, but nothing that would really be beneficial to their overall mission. Those were a higher rank than they were currently. The two were discussing what one to take as a humanoid white-colored lion Digimon came in, taking notice of them. The lion looked at them and began to glare, pulling a large blade slowly from his back. As Nicole's dark-colored blaze of Digivolution kicked up, and our main Digidestined character warned them they'd lose that hand if they tried it, turning to look at the white-colored Digimon with a dangerous look in his eye. Nodding, the lion told them that his name was Panjamon, and he could use someone with Nicole's senses, while putting the blade away, showing them one of the missions a couple of ranks higher than them, adding that if the two were with at least one individual of that rank, they could join the mission and receive a split of the equal payment.